thinking of doing computer science, and then what happened in high school was a sophomore year. I was sitting in an English class, I passed out, landed on my face, gave myself a concussion, all the while reading a paper about concussions in youth sports, which was like completely ironic.
I think that definitely spurred his interest into going into neuroscience. He suffered a concussion and actually had to stop playing tennis for a year. He really slipped under the radar of other college recruiters because in 2012 he was a highly ranked 3-star kid, and then 2013 he was ranked as well, but in 2014, just before he came to Stonehill, he had no ranking.
Most times, you know, it's a month or a couple weeks and you're fine, but my symptoms lasted like 2 to 3 years, so I was having like constant headaches, concentration problems, and I spent more time in a doctor's office than actually at school all throughout high school. So they would be like, oh, we don't really know anything, or we don't know much, and it was kind of frustrating for me. And personally, it was more upsetting for thinking about like the next person that would have to come in and be like, oh, we don't know what's going on. I ran a search on Google, like it was top Division II academic schools, and Stonehill was number 2 on the list. And then I emailed Coach Miller and he was just like, oh, come out for a visit. And I absolutely loved it. And I don't know, it kind of felt right because they have the neuroscience program, but they also have connections to the Harvard Medical School laboratories where I have interned. Top tier research that is not necessarily done on campus, but is easily had at Stonehill, which is very rare for a liberal arts school. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to play tennis or not, but it gave me the option of it if I did want to continue playing. So I think that for me was the deal.
His impetus for majoring in neuroscience is to conduct research on concussion and CTE, which is in the news a lot these days, and post-concussive syndrome and problems of this type. Stonehill undergraduate research experience, what it does is it allows students to pair up, to match with faculty who are interested in doing a research project. And it gives students an opportunity to work individually with a faculty member and to gain experience in that particular research.
So then I kind of went up there at the end of freshman year and then started sophomore year to actually get all the paperwork done and get into the lab and start doing the research, which I was fascinated by as soon as I stepped in.
Talked with him about his career goals and made him aware of the techniques that we use in the sleep lab to conduct research on circuitry related to sleep are very similar as the ones he would use in a lab studying concussion and things of this nature. So he began working actually before the shore summer as an intern at the West Roxbury VA lab, and his project had a lot to do with the neuroanatomy of a certain part of the brain that appears to be dysfunctional in a variety of sleep disorders, as well as it's dysfunctional in Alzheimer's disease.
A bunch of neurons in your brain, so a bunch of cells, and they talk to each other. And certain cells will talk to each other and activate different parts of your brain for different behaviors. So what that lab looks at is sleep. So they wanted to figure out which neurons talk to each other that basically promoted sleep or promoted wakefulness. My project was basically slicing up over 500 different slices of brains per 5 animals and writing down where I saw one part of the brain talking to another part of the brain. So there was like 110 different brain regions that we thought are connected to wakefulness and promoting wakefulness and the transitions between sleep and wake, which was interesting, which hasn't been done before. And I was very grateful that I had the chance to go study abroad, which was nice. I know Coach is very academics first, which I love about the program here. I picked Denmark because they have a science research kind of class where you get paired up with a mentor in Denmark and get to do research. I got paired up with a neurologist in Denmark. He wanted to do a literature search on epilepsy seizure detection using basically non-video recording of seizures. Since seizures kind of have jerk motion and there's different kinds, you can relate that motion back to detecting a seizure in an accelerometer. So my whole project was basically looking at all the research that was done in the field so far and synthesizing it into a review of what's out there now and what needs to be done still. I wrote every single word of the review, and we submitted it to Neurophysiology Practice, and hopefully it'll be published within a year or two.
It's just been a pleasure to work with. He's learned everything possible in our lab, and now he's going on to a PhD program at Boston University to work with one of the preeminent groups of researchers that study concussion and CTE. So he's really working, and he's going to be working at one of the best labs in the world.
What's fascinating is that they don't look at it just from a strictly biological view. They look at it from a physics view of how the actual physics of a brain injury are causing tearing and shearing of the brain, and the stuff that will actually lead to symptomology and pathology of the CTE. And that's what I think is really fascinating from their research, is that they can reverse engineer a hit or a blast injury from the field in a war and put it into a mouse model, and then use that mouse model to study it a bunch of different times and see what we get compared to the humans that we see. We can only get that post-human studies. So I think that's fascinating. That's really why I wanted to go there. The BU group has really kind of taken the torch of leading the direction of the CTE research and kind of head trauma research and repetitive head trauma research. So that is really fascinating. I know there's tons of implications. There's tons of implications for the NFL. There's tons of implications for rugby. And basically any contact sport. It's probably not going to be the clearest water you jump into there, and there's definitely going to be politics behind it, but I feel like when it comes down to it, that's something that might need to change.
I think he's going to go on to do great things. He's being paid to get his doctorate, which is really an unbelievable opportunity, and I think we're going to see great things from him in the future.
Thomas Bellio is one of our star students. This year he's actually our Student of the Year in neuroscience. We're really proud of him. We're really proud of all of our other neuroscience students as well, but he's a shining star.